Hey Jake.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. We're getting there.
Good to see you. Right, guys, a couple of things we need to say before we get into this chat. So Jake and I met online and we had a couple of dates and I swiped left, you swiped right.
Yep.
I was thinking about this on the way over. This is a genuine relationship, a genuine friendship.
What are the other ones?
We did not meet on Tinder, we did not meet on Grindr, just to be absolutely clear. But we did meet on Instagram, I think, many years ago.
Yep.
And it's funny because people talk about watches and cars and other collectibles and things that draw and bring people together.
Yep.
But you know, our friendship really is that. It started online. It's become an in-person friendship. It's become a what's the word? We lean on each other, I think, for different things, good and bad. For support.
Emotional
support.
Yeah.
And an opinion, and I think that's what it is. So, guys, welcome. Jake has got maybe the most similar taste to me out of anybody I know, and that adds for another level of intrigue. But no, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And
yes, our tastes are similar, which is kind of saddening in the sense we could just end up with the exact same collection.
Which ironically, we're not far off now.
We're getting there.
There is a watch that we both have. But there's watches that we've almost had at the same time. But also, I would say that we tend to get stuff coming in. We get excited about things, and then we also do move things on as well. Interesting. But before we get into this, because there's a 2-watch collection, but we have got more than one watch roll here, because often with guests in the past, we've had a watch on the wrist, which is sort of a kicker sometimes to the 2 watches that they might bring.
Yep.
And we haven't yet had a chance to discuss what you have brought, or what the hell that second cognac case is.
Well, I didn't know that would be a part of the video. I thought that the watch on the wrist was cheating a bit, so I've got Swatch chronograph on. I thought that's nice. But I just thought, I'm coming over. I'll bring some watches. Why bring 2 when you could bring
4?
Yeah, exactly.
6. Before we get into that, before you show us your A team and your B team of your 2-watch collection, just tell us firstly how you got into watches and how this all came about.
So I think for me there's a couple of answers there. But a really early memory is being in primary school, and I had a watch which was basically, it was like a magic 8 ball. So when you shake it and it gives you an answer. I had a watch that you'd press a button and it would give you like yes, no, maybe, who knows. And I remember being probably year 2, 3, 4. I had a couple of them when one broke.
Sorry, it doesn't tell you the time, but it does.
It does tell you time. So it's a digital watch.
It's time, and it gives you the prompt.
It gives you an answer.
Yeah, an answer.
So like kids, or my friends used to come up to me and be like, "Does Sue fancy me?" And we used to be like, "No." So I've got really.
So you're the coolest guy in the yard.
Yeah, and you know what? When I remember going to a later school and people that knew back then went, "Oh, you used to have the watch," and like it was a real good memory from that time. I then
who made it? Do we know?
Not a clue. It would have been super cheap, but I remember I had a blue and green one, and that died after a year, and I loved it so much. I managed to get kind of a black and silver one. But actually, I'd say kind of my proper love or where it went deep is sadly my grandma passed away, and I got £200 inheritance, and I was basically told, buy something you're going to keep forever. And then that's kind of when the journey starts, and you're kind of looking at these shops going, okay, what can I buy? Well, maybe there's watches on sale. I might be able to get a £300 watch for £200. And I ended up with a skeleton rotary watch, which I obviously still have. But I just loved it, and I loved the fact that it kind of was going to stay with me. But I kind of just never stopped looking at watches. So after the rotary was bought, I was like, okay, what else is there? And I remember being at university. I had this like binder that I'd use for all my work, and on the first page it said, "Work harder," and I had a Hamilton Jazzmaster. They did a chronograph, and that was kind of my motivation at uni of like, if you work hard one day, you might own a Hamilton Jazzmaster chronograph. So yeah, it just kept going, and I guess we might talk a little bit today around how you can keep getting deeper and deeper kind of into collecting and what that looks like. But yeah, I think that first rotary was where it's started and basically not stopped.
Who was it that gave you the advice to buy something that would last forever or that you can keep? And what is it about watches specifically? I know you've got interests in other fields as well, but what is it about watches? Because it's hard to quantify sometimes what it is that really draws you in as a young person.
I think, for me, I was thinking, what can I spend £200 on that I'll know will still be here in 50 years or probably beyond me as well? And, well, you certainly can't afford a car.
This one that moves.
You wouldn't, I don't think you would have an item of clothing that would last that long. Going away for a night is obviously, I think, a great use of money, but that's gone after that experience. So I think naturally I just ended up with a watch. I think it's one of the few bits of jewellery that men typically, most men typically.
Did you grow up with parents that wore watches? Did your mum and dad ever wear a watch?
No. I did find an old Citizen Eco Drive that my dad had, I think, in the 80s and 90s that they had, but no, there was no real kind of watches in the family. I think even the rotary felt like Jake's bought a watch. So yeah,
very cool. And then so that's where it started. Did you ever get the Jazzmaster? Was it Jazzmaster?
I actually did buy a Jazzmaster. I didn't buy the one I wanted, and the truth is, the one I wanted, I still sometimes look at them like they're not what I would want in a watch. I think it was a 42mm plated gold chronograph. Like I wouldn't really wear it or pull it off now, but I do sometimes look at them in case there's one cheap
Didn't
somewhere.
Elvis have
yes, he did.
a Hamilton Jazzmaster?
Yes.
But he had the sort of angular case-shaped one.
Yeah. I don't want to attempt to say what it's called, but I know it begins with a V. And like they are a fairly iconic watch brand, and I think for me, I felt they're good value for where they're priced in the market, and I'd still encourage the purchase of a Hamilton. I've had a Hamilton khaki field. It's been a brilliant watch.
And you aren't in the watch world professionally, so you're in a different realm.
Yep.
Which is interesting because we have had guests who work in watches but it feels like you're on the pulse of it. You know, almost every day we talk, and you know what's going on.
Yeah.
What do you read out there? Who do you consume information from? What inspires you? Are there people, media? What? Because you're plugged in. You are plugged in.
Yeah. Well, your good self, of course. I follow along.
You'll be paid later.
Thank you. I used to read Hodinkee a lot back in the day. I think. I don't want to slate Hodinkee, but I think they've kind of felt that it's changed a little bit over the last few years. I do still think, I might, who knows if I'll get criticism for this, but Ben Clymer, I think back in the day, liked everything that we like today. And I think he's often ahead of the curve. So Alfa Romeo Zagatos, he's got BMW 2800, which is amazing. And I think from watch collecting, he was collecting Laurent Ferrier before probably either of us were buying or aware of it. So still kind of follow him. Obviously, we have a good friend Tim that I think we talked to. I know his name always gets mentioned in these. Tim.
The infamous Tim Green.
Yeah,
he keeps a low profile. He's on Instagram. He's at Flat 4 in the car sense, and he works at Subdial.
Yes.
And I think one of the reasons, because people have kindly commented on this before when Pete and I have mentioned him, sometimes we forget that we need to provide some context as to who some of these people are.
Yeah.
But he's a friend, very knowledgeable. He is, of course, a dealer in the sense that you can buy and sell from him.
Yeah.
What I have on today, this Vacheron was bought from him very kindly, 1955 platinum.
Yeah.
But what's lovely about him is, and I'm sure there's others out there from wherever in the world you're watching this, there's somebody that you have built that sort of relationship with, where they really understand you, and they, you know, of course there's a commercial aspect to the relationship, but fun first and foremost, I would consider it to be a considered, friendly relationship where he really wants to bring joy first and foremost.
Yeah, but there's also an element of convenience. So you mentioned that. Yeah, there's some collectors that buy a watch, and every watch they've ever bought will never leave their collection. Like, I'm going to say I can't afford to do that. So I would often say, well, I'm eyeing up that watch. What potentially might need to go, or what do I need to top up? And I think the nice thing about kind of working with Tim and the guys at Subdial, we should say it's not paid.
Subdial have not paid a penny for it. But they've been very good to us over the years.
Yeah, and you can go, I've got these two watches. I want that watch.
Yeah.
What's the gap? Okay, great. You need a couple of grand more, and I can have the watch I'm kind of pining after. Like, I think that's I think it's that convenience, which
Totally
is
right.
yeah,
And also
value
the willingness to maybe make a deal work where
Yeah.
it's impossible to make it work elsewhere. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
All right then, Jake. So brand-wise, let's touch on brands before we. God, people are wondering when we're going to see a watch. The brands that you're interested in.
Yeah.
There are a few I can think of immediately now that are speaking to you more so than others. What are we talking?
I think I'm a big brand guy. So I go through phases in collecting of either do you go for kind of one brand, or you pick a group of brands and you stay within that, or do you try and go one watch from every brand? But I think I tend to be happier in picking a few that I like. I should say vintage Swatch firstly is for me, it's a brand. It's probably in that top 5.
Yeah.
Super wearable, people love them, and yeah.
37 mil, so both the same size.
Okay.
Fits you beautifully. And let's touch on that strap very quickly, because people do ask me lots of questions about Swatch, vintage Swatch. These early chronographs, these 90s, early 90s chronographs, the straps broke very quick because the plastic was terrible.
They basically don't bend, which I don't know.
Crispy is the word.
Yeah,
Crispy
exactly.
is the word.
So yeah, which can make them unwearable, but Swatch still sells straps that will fit on this watch. So
for how much did you pay for that?
I think they're £9.
Rubber strap?
Yes.
£9?
Yes. How much are the Jean rubber straps?
900.
Okay. We like Jean.
We do. But that's amazing. So £9. So for £10, talking about Christmas gifts, that's got to be a hell of a Christmas gift for someone coming up.
So I've got a handful of these 90s chronographs. I know you do as well, but it's the strap that makes it difficult to wear, or you can wear it, but you feel the strap's going to snap at any point. So all of mine are just on a modern Swatch strap, so I can put the watch on, wear it, and off you go.
Jake, let's dive into your first. Let's open a roll. What we got here? What we got this? So we've got a Molquin grey, just to touch on that, because people always want to know what the case is. That's a beauty. Nobody does it quite like Molquin.
Yeah. Agreed.
You go for it. I can't open
Cool.
that.
Do you want to see them both? How are we doing this?
Intuitively, you picked 2 that you brought with, right?
Yeah.
And those are the first 2.
Yep.
So maybe as a kicker, we can dive into what's in that thing over there. But give us your first 2, your main thoughts.
So for me, this is, I don't want to use the word need, but this is the only 2 watches I'd ever need or want. I think I could get rid of everything else and live a very happy life. No, which may sound silly because it's not.
I'm telling you right now that if you follow this man, a man in time, by the way, on Instagram is the handle.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now that that's not true. That in a few months' time, that will not be true. But I love the ambition of it. I love the ambition.
It's a life that potentially is a dream.
Okay.
But actually, if we were to have one watch, it would be this. And this is my first ever proper watch, I'd say. So 36 mil Rolex Explorer 114270. Okay. I think this is the best watch maybe ever made. And I don't think you're expecting me to bring this watch.
No, I wasn't. And this is one of the areas probably that we differ, actually. I've never owned a Rolex before.
Okay.
But I can totally see the versatility of the watch. Am I right in saying that case size has been discontinued now? 36.
So I'm pretty sure they've bought, so it went 36 for forever, then they went 39, and now they're back at 36.
Okay.
There might be another one in there as well.
It's gone up in size, I think.
I think there's a 36 still.
Okay.
But this from 2002. So
Someone will correct us.
Yeah, this is 21 years old.
When did you get it and where did you get it and why?
I bought this. So when I started working in the industry I'm currently working in, I was living at home with my mum and dad, and I'd probably bought that rotary 2 or 3 years ago, and I was still just on the hunt. And I wanted a Pepsi. That's what I wanted. I wanted the 5-digit reference Pepsi. And I was looking. I was offered a Coke at the time for £3,200, but I couldn't afford it. And a family friend said, I've got this Explorer. It's full set, still got the sticker on the back. It's £2,250 if you want it. And I was kind of like, I want a Pepsi, but I can afford this. And the truth is, I gave them £1,000 and paid them £250 for the next 5 months. I was living at home. I had a salary to pay for it. So that was, I think that was in 2014. First proper watch.
2014.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
and you've kept the sticker on the back.
Yeah, well, I think why not?
That's
nice
great.
and green.
That's
It's
great.
got like loads of my nice gunk in.
You can really see you've.
So for me, this watch, I have worn it hiking up mountains. I wear it to weddings. I wear it on the beach. I wear it to work most days. I just think it's the it's the every watch. It does absolutely everything, and I don't think you actually need anything more. I think you could want more.
Quite an interesting choice to go for that size though, because naturally things in the last year or two, the market's moved to smaller case sizes, but we've, I think, in our journeys together have moved to smaller case sizes. But this was probably seen as being particularly small back then.
And you know, one of the other this is funny. I look back. One of the other watches I was looking at the time was Breitling Super Ocean, and you could get one with a gold bezel and a steel case, and that was $3,000 to $4,000 or whatever. And actually, this watch couldn't be more different from that watch. But it's just comfy. It works. And if I got rid of everything, that's the one watch that would stay.
You keep really. And this has, in many ways, it's gone through the test of time because it's been with you for so long. I mean, that says a lot. You know, I think with watches sometimes you do just need a little bit, as cliche as it is, you just need a bit of time with them before you really know whether they work or not. And clearly, you've been in that relationship for long enough now to know that that's one that you're going to keep.
Yes. And you know what? You can pick these up for probably $5,000. I would encourage people, if you're looking to buy your first watch or second watch, buy this and then just run away.
Would you ever go for a 1016? Would you ever go for a vintage version?
I've owned a 1016. I kind of prefer the 1016.
Do you?
But it felt a bit pointless having a 1016 and having this watch. So I guess it's part of collecting. That's I think what we talk about a fair bit of that kind of overlap. So I think for me in my current version of collecting and what I like to collect, a 1016 is right up there. But I wouldn't sell this. So I'll just have two watches that are very similar, one probably with a matte dial or a gloss dial.
Do you think you would have done everything you had done with that watch with the 1016? Because there is that sense with a vintage watch now that you haven't got that real wearability to it. You can with conviction wear it and do everything.
Probably not everything. I'm quite good at wearing vintage, and I think they're built to be worn. But probably not everything I've done. So
brilliant.
One thing I like about this is potentially a stupid story, but I was wearing this when I met my then wife. Then wife? My current.
Right, if she's watching out there, unfortunately Jake has got some news to share today, and he's breaking it to you via YouTube.
My then wife. What does that even mean? Oh well.
There's only been one so far.
There is one wife. Let's just go. Hi, wife. I won't say your name. Can we edit the colours on my face? I met my girlfriend, who became my wife.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Wearing that watch?
Wearing this watch.
She came up to you and said, I love your watch.
Pretty much. That happened. No, it doesn't. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I guess I was just a stupid boy, but I thought, what will impress this girl that I'm trying to impress? That's what I'm trying to say. And there was a really tall wall, and I thought, I reckon I could run up that wall and grab and climb it, because obviously that's what women like, isn't it? Like a man that just runs off and does a bit of parkour, probably shouting like parkour. So I did that. I remember running, grabbing the top of the wall, and it was a concrete wall, and I could just feel my watch clasp on the concrete.
No.
And I remember just going,
oh no.
You're here now. You're trying to impress this girl with parkour for some reason. And I just pulled myself along and just scraped all of this, which at the time hurt. But actually, I look at all the scratches on the bottom of this as a time that I was trying to impress my now wife. And I love it. No, she wasn't impressed. Of course she wasn't.
Did you tell her about the watch? Did you do something that in pain?
She knew. She knew what had happened. But actually, they're kind of battle scars of a time of early in our relationship.
And the other thing,
I love it for that.
I love that as well. I look at, and I've got a few. Nothing as impressive actually story-wise as that, but I look at a few nicks and I think, God, I remember that well. Interestingly enough, the thing we should comment on for you as a collector that I think is fascinating, and we've not discussed this with any other guests, is that you view the collection, or it's a constant thing in your mind about viewing the lineup and how the balance works together. You're not just looking at dials, you're not just looking at cases or brands, you're looking at the whole lineup together. How does it sit together? Why is that important to you?
For me, that's the fun, and that's not just in watches. That can be, I play that game with everything, but it's about going, let's say this series is called 2 watch collection. So for me, I'm thinking, what if I could have 2 watches, what would those 2 be? But you might say, well, I'm going to kindly allow you to have 4 watches. So if I could add 2 more, what do I add? I want to make sure that I've got watches for every occasion, and I can kind of strip that back. So yeah, for me, it's certainly about looking at where, I guess, collection overlaps. I remember a time which, probably earlier in my collecting days, but I started to earn a bit more money, and I had this. I had a vintage Tudor Submariner. I had a Polar Dial Explorer 2, a Seamaster, maybe another GMT as well. And I looked at them all and I thought, wow, this is something I've strived for ages. I managed to buy the watches I love. But I'd wake up, go to work, and I'd just put this one in every day. And I just realised, I was like, okay, this is my stainless steel sports watch. It does the job. I don't need 6 other watches that do the exact same thing. Maybe you might have one vintage version, which there is a vintage version in there. But yeah, it's about kind of what makes sense in a collection. So yeah, I think about that a lot.
Hugely satisfying as well. As much as it takes up a lot of brain bandwidth in the mind, it is very, very satisfying.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, steel sports watch. Let's move on. What do you got next, Jake? So this is the A team. So this is the first team. So we're talking what we think is lifetime commitment here.
Yeah, I mean it's the Lange 1.
There it is.
027X. I think you didn't look at the watches before we started.
I swear I didn't see anything.
But I think you knew that.
I think I didn't know what the second would be, but in my heart of hearts, having spoken to you a lot about this watch, because you've had variations at Lange in the past, as have I, and we've now sort of, and I must admit, I didn't know about this watch until you showed it to me a couple of months back, and it felt like a real revelation moment because it had all the key design elements that I guess I'd been looking for. I knew that there were painted dials out there. But they were only, in my mind, I remember them being in steel or for an anniversary like the other one a couple of years ago. And so sort of unattainable and elusive. But actually, that is a really interesting watch. What have we actually got there?
I remember sending you a picture of this, and I think you responded with, how have you got steel Lange 1?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, there's a trick here. So yeah, it's a printed dial, first gen, Lange 1. The story is that these were going to be released to commemorate a bridge. Am I saying that? So to commemorate a bridge, it was going to be a special edition. The bridge never got built, but Lange had built a few of these watches. So they never announced the fact that they made these watches. They never put them in a catalogue. They never put them online. They were never in an advert. They just slowly released them to their top collectors back in the day. So
mainly in America, I think. Like in Wempe, or at least my one was the one I've got is from Wempe, and from what I've read, it seemed to be their best retail partners, of which America is a big market.
Yeah,
but interesting. And how many do we think produce? So
the number on Langpedia is 225. 225. But there's no real known number. But I think from a design perspective, it's the perfect Lange 1. And I've owned a couple. The watch I probably bonded with most outside of this was the Lange 1 Platinum Moonface. Love the feel of the platinum. I do love Moonface on a watch. But the hands are loomed, and the dials within the dial are just a bit more clunky. Whereas I think these time-only ones are a bit more sleek with glued hands. So
I agree. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So the only difference between our two watches is you've got an early one, so you've got a small Made in Germany logo, which you'll be able to see here just below the hour subdial, the hour and the minute subdial. And that's been a journey in itself, and still people aren't entirely sure or convinced about how that works. What you can do is you can see the case back, which this one has the so-called Shrek O.
Yes, and it is a Shrek.
It's Shrek. Where the O with the little things, I'm not sure, some German speakers will kill me out there. Is Umlaut. There you go. So they're connected. So the O and is connected to the dots because the cases were made outside of Germany, by all accounts, in these early ones. And the later ones is a far cleaner case engraving where the separation.
There's a bit of space.
And that would correspond, so this case does correspond to the dial, which is the small MIG, whereas the newer ones, the later ones, mine has a larger one and a different case. So nonetheless, very, very clean, It's got a silver hue to it. There is a difference between the subdials and the dial itself, where there's a bit of snailing going on.
Yep, which I like.
But you're right, it's so clean, and it's white gold. And it's probably, it is the quintessential Lange one. Even just looking at the case, I've not had mine out for a while, and just looking at the case construction, it's just so satisfying the way it's put together. It's just so beautiful, so beautiful.
Yeah, and so I owned a, I think 101033 for anyone that wants to look it up, which is rose gold grey dial. But the case was polished on all 3 levels, and I just felt it was wrong. So sorry if you have one of those watches, but for me the Lange case needs to be polished, brushed,
satin, yeah,
polished.
Yeah.
And I think this watch screams that. And
I agree.
Yeah,
Really
just, special.
And I would say 38.5 mil is probably, it's difficult to say this now, and again we'll probably have some comments, but objectively it's probably the perfect case size, and I'm considering bigger wrists and smaller wrists there, and shapes and sizes, but it's just perfection. And so the hands are blued. That's the one key thing, is the markers aren't blued, the hands are blued for the power reserve and for the hours and minutes and sub-seconds, in case you're wondering what to look for, because I didn't know what I was looking at to start with, but that's the key design element there. So you've gone for a blue, you've kept it on the blue strap.
Yes. You've not done. It's good that you're going to.
I'm considering. I'm just thinking blue does work.
Okay.
But I've always traditionally gone for a sort of taupe, which I like.
Yes, and it does look good on a taupe. But it's just stunning.
Look at you wanting it.
And you asked me about brands earlier. Like Lange is a brand that I really love. But for me, it's the design. I think there's so few new designs in kind of modern watchmaking. There's so many different homages or throwbacks, and I appreciate that the 30 odd years next year, but actually it's still quite new for a watch brand, and they came up with a design which they can call their own. And you can see, I guess, those 2 dials and you go, that's a Lange one.
Oh, that big date.
Whereas I think brands really struggle at the moment to create something new. So
and do you know what I've thought about the Lange one recently as well, is it's so good. But it's almost like, why are you looking elsewhere? Because I often think to myself, it's the one for me I would walk out the door with if I had to. Why are you looking elsewhere? You're trying to find answers everywhere where actually you've got the answer right in front of you. And there are lots of different variations to dive into already. I'm hoping that next year for this anniversary they come out with a not frosted dial, but a sort of, they had last year they came out with a Grand Lange one with a grey sort of hammered dial almost. I'm hoping that they bring that out in a smaller case size in the original 38.5. Because there's a lot of different ways in which that model can still be. Lange have not gone out and partnered with everybody and created limited editions of all kinds.
No.
For Lange one. So there's lots of different ways it can go, which is exciting. I could collect just Lange one, I think, but again.
Me too. we were driving to dinner the other day, and we were saying, well, the blue dial's nice, isn't it? The 027, that's all, but the grey dial's nice. But all stealth is good, Darth is good. And then you just end up in a place of, okay, this is how you end up collecting Lange ones.
I don't know any Lange 1 collectors out there. So maybe one day we'll be Lange 1 collectors. Great combinations. You've got undoubtedly a dress watch that's got intrigue in bucket loads, and you've got a still sports watch there that's got pedigree from a design perspective, but maybe a bit more obvious, but actually one that you're deeply connected to. Let's give you the right, and it's not a right that I give easily, but I'm going to give you the right to crack open that cognac.
Okay. There's only 2 watches in there.
Just give us a quick overview, a quick flash, because now we know that this is not necessarily what you take with you to the desert island with your 2, but give us an idea of what you got.
I actually think, so let's put these 2 here. There's a watch here which certainly adds a third. I'm not sure if you even know I picked this up.
Oh God. Hey? A new watch.
So the Hodinkee IWC.
So this you've had before?
I have had this before.
So you broke up. This is a classic.
Yeah.
You guys dated for a while. How long did you date for? You didn't get married, but how long did you date for?
18 months.
18 months. Yeah. Decided it wasn't right. The jitters, the 18-month jitters, the 12 to 18-month jitters. You then realise you made a mistake. And sometimes, from experience, when you then go back to that relationship, you forget all the things that were great.
Yeah.
You forget all the things that were tough.
Yeah.
And you go in thinking about all the things that were great, and then you realise, God, there were still some things that were tough. How's it been with that?
It's it's just so wearable. Like the things I like about the Explorer that I just chuck it on, I don't really think about it, I can crack on with my day. It's really versatile. I get a little smile when I check the time. I feel that way about this. But we spoke about overlapping. I don't think it overlaps with the Explorer. It's not just the same watch again. It's kind of got it. Yeah, it's got its own complete design language. And I guess we spoke about. I'm going to side tangent. One of the things we talk about is icons, don't we? So we like collecting icons. We said Lange 1. That is what Lange created. That is their watch. I think the Explorer is quite Rolex, but actually, I think of a pilot's watch when I think of IWC, and I think, yeah, this ticks those boxes. Yeah,
and a black one. And so that was the limited edition that came out for Hodinkee a couple of years back, which I've got to say was just a brilliant collab, one of the best. I mean, Hodinkee did do some cracking collabs. The Vacheron one was very good. The MB&F original one was very good. But that was probably, for most people out there, that's the one they think of. And I remember the video in the Holding website that they came up with that was sort of panning through the desert, and it just looked so exciting to me. And of course, the proportions on that were great. No date.
Yep.
And 40 mil.
39, I believe.
39, shit, there we go. Ceratanium?
Yes. So I don't think there's another Ceratanium IWC sub 42 millimeters, I'd say. So I think if you want one, and potentially you lean to 36 to 39, this is basically your only choice from IWC.
Very, very good. Yeah. And Ceratanium, having handled one a couple of weeks back, it's got its own colourway. It's not black, it's not the jet black, it's got a lightness to it, and it's just a wonderful, innovative material that has sort of taken IWC's initial pioneering work in zirconium oxide in ceramic, and then moved it forward to something here which is really quite robust. So unlike ceramic, if you were to drop it, it wouldn't crack in the same way, as I understand it.
But it's still super light and just easy on the wrist.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And this is, I won't say the number, but it's not lovely to have the number on the back there.
I don't even know the number.
So good. It is so good, and it's got a richness to the markers. It's not a photina, but it's got its own colour palette, which is punchy. Brilliant. All right, Jake, thank you. I'll keep that one to one side. Give us your fourth there, which is a side note.
So,
oh God,
this is the watch I said I wanted. Yes. So when I wanted the Explorer, there was a watch that I said I wanted before, which was a Pepsi. I kind of, the modern Pepsi hadn't come out yet, so I was a bit indifferent as to whether I go 4-digit, 5-digit, but this was a watch I'd always kind of yearned after, and the blimmin' price kept going up. So I would earn slightly more money. I'd be like, oh great, I can now afford that $4,000 watch. Pepsi's were then $6,000, and then I keep going. Oh, I can now afford a $6,000 watch. Oh, Pepsi's are now $8,000. and I remember being in a watch shop a handful of years ago, and there was a 16750, which is a transitional dial, and it was up for $7,900, and it's just where I was going to get married. And I thought, have we met the point where I can now potentially afford a watch at that value? And I passed on it, and they kept going. So yes, I paid a lot more for this one, but I finally got it. Long E. Super original, so original dial, the hands match perfectly, the bezel's faded really nicely, and it's got what, I'm not sure if this is its official term, but I'd call it a super fat font bezel. So the numbers on the bezel are kind of really puffy as well. But yeah, finally got the Pepsi.
Not a maxi dial as we know in the modern sense.
No. I've probably owned this for 3 or 4 years now. Brings me a load of joy. I've put it on a Jubilee to try and not have, again, too much overlap with the Explorer. But yeah, a watch I'd pined after for a long time. And I was very tempted to make the 2-watch collection, the Pepsi and the Lange one. I think they work as a pair quite nicely. But the truth is that if stuff had to go, the Explorer would stay.
So. That is a lovely combo, isn't it? And it really is. It's a great size, and it is undoubtedly. I mean, I love the Rolex debate. What is the icon from Rolex? I mean, that's a conversation for another time. And I'm definitely not the man to have that debate with my lack of Rolex knowledge.
Never owned a Rolex.
No.
Would you do a 1, 2, 3 of Submariner? GMT Daytona.
Well, I've got a Tudor sub, which I absolutely love, 7016, the original Snowflake, and I love that watch. I love everything about that watch, and I love the fact there are some Rolex nods to it. The crown and the case back have got crowns on them. But what would I have? I wouldn't have a modern Daytona. Maybe an early, like a hand wound something with a,
Yep.
something from that genre. A Milgauss, an original Milgauss,
Okay.
I would love. I think the satin brushed bracelet. I'd have a modern Milgauss, but I would actually brush the bracelet because I don't like the polished links. I don't like the central link.
Okay,
being polished.
yeah, I agree
That
with
would
that.
be quite fun. I think, and then I would probably replace the Rehawk without any Rolex written around it. That would be quite fun.
Can you
for
do
me,
that?
No, I don't think you can. But that's my dream. That's my dream for the modern Rolex.
Yeah,
For a modern
off.
Milgauss.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, that's probably me actually for Rolex. I think maybe a Cellini or I'd wear a Cellini actually. I think that new version that they've just launched.
Okay. So the 1908?
Yeah, the 19. I actually love that. I love the hands with the sort of observatory.
Well, I think if you we obviously kind of attend the watch meets and watch dinners or whatever. I think if you wore, I guess the three I mentioned, sub GMT Daytona, there's a good chance that someone else will also be sat there potentially with an identical watch. I don't think you'd have that with the 1908. Certainly not yet as well. So yeah,
I did. Weirdly enough, I did see one on the plane the other day to Zurich, which shouldn't be a surprise. But I did see one. I thought that's cool. To me, and I know it's the same for you. Anything that's a bit unusual always gets me excited. Let's finish up, Jake. Just thank you for sharing those. Let's finish up with what's next. And I know that in your mind you've always got something there that's tickling you.
Yeah.
Maybe we can leave the debate that you've got internally to the audience out there.
Okay.
Because it's one we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And you're thinking Lange, but you're not sure which reference.
So we both love the 1815 chronograph. And probably on both of our Instagrams, you'll see a regular poll which says, do you go boutique dial?
Yeah.
Do you go black dial? That's a watch that I have kind of pined after for many years now. And again, it's the silly conversation of, I remember being offered the rose gold with the kind of panda dial, so black with I remember being offered one for 23.5 grand and trying on going, this feels like a lot of watch for the money. And then I've been offered a first gen for 26 and a boutique for 29. And they've always just been a bit of a stretch. And I think that they're starting to settle or potentially even drop a bit now. So yeah, that's certainly a point. But would you get rid of a Lange 1 to buy an 1815 chrono?
We've discussed the fact that, you've got to package a few things up to get to that watch. It's not something you can just go and buy.
Nope.
It's absolutely the same for me, but the Lange 1 stands on its own. As we've said, it stands on its own, and for a long time we've thought about trading to that.
Yep.
And while the monetary value suggests it might be, some Lange 1s are like 20,000-ish,
Yep.
and to get up to 40, 50-ish, is it double the value? Is it double the watch? Is it and I don't think it is now. I think the 1815 is amazing. It stands on its own. That movement, of course, is to me standout.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful chronograph in the market.
I think so. I think if you compare it to a 5170, Corne de Vache, anything like that, for me, the Lange stands out if you're looking at case backs.
But do you know what's really interesting is that I think, and having put the debate out there a lot, is that people tend to like that caliber movement and the view into the case back more than they like the watch itself. Sometimes people are let down a little bit by the dialers, the dial side, which is not necessarily as exciting as the case back. So it's also one of those emotional responses. Not that we've been in a position to do it, but immediately with the Lange 1, everything about it speaks to me. Whereas that 1850 chrono, there is some level of resistance and a little bit of a lack of lust, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean, there are some watches that you just lust after, that you put up on your board and your phone or wherever, and you keep coming back to them. And if someone says to you, "What's next?" it's straight away. And for me, at least, there's been some resistance. Don't get me wrong; I would love one day. But do you think there's anything to that? Do you think there's anything to the sexiness of it, if you will?
I think there's when you're getting to that kind of value of a watch, it's a big purchase, and maybe a part of my brain goes, it is just a watch, or I also love cars, and I mean, you certainly could get into a lot of nice cars for, let's just call it 50 grand. There's a lot of things you could get. So I think it's just about thinking, okay, I'm going to buy this. It's just going to be another watch sat in the watch box. Potentially, what else? What else is there? So I think what potentially could actually be next to me is the 3940 Patek.
That's a big bolt to drop.
But we spoke about icons within a brand. That watch for me screams Patek. Like when I think of Patek, I think of that and the 3970. And I know people maybe prefer the other petrocandle chronographs, but
so I guess, guys, that's probably a nice way for us to close. Is leave us your view in the comment section as to where you would go. Would you go Patek? Would you go Lange to start with? Out of those two, if they're head to head, because the pricing on the Patek secondary market is
they're probably similar-ish. Yeah.
And then if you were to go Lange, would you be going black dial? Because I think we've discussed the black dial and the way that it pops is amazing.
Yeah.
And would you go boutique dial, which is a grey with blue accents on the markers, or would you go for what's the other one? What's the other option? 1815. Yeah, it's
black dial, boutique dial.
Those are the only two really.
They're the two I think we'd consider.
First gen small sub dials is a conversation for another time.
They're sunken.
Yeah, sunken. It's not quite right.
Yeah, it's tempting.
Anyway. Jake, thank you so much.
All good problems.
Yeah, all good problems. Hopefully we've given you 35, 40 minutes of just a little bit of a release from anything that's remotely serious in life. And hopefully this has been enjoyed by all at home. And what a collection, Jake. Thanks, boy. I feel like I've had an emotional journey for each of these. So, and hopefully we're going to have many, many years of joy together going down the rabbit hole.
Cool.
Top man.
Good man.
Cheers, Jake.
Cheers.
Thanks, boy.